This is the Owl of Wisdom. Like and subscribe for 10 years of good luck. If you don't, it won't be pretty. What looks complicated to do, but is actually quite easy. When you truly get over the fear of failure of perfectionism, you might be surprised how much you are capable of. When I was young, I tried to spin a ball on my finger and couldn't do it. So I tried again and again. And within an hour I pretty much figured it out. Picking a standard pin and tumbler lock. Basic sewing. Things like simple hemming, sewing buttons are easy to learn and will make your life easier. If you keep learning, it's amazing to be able to fit your own clothes. Running a pre-programmed light board for theater plays. It's hitting one button over and over on cue. Origami paper cranes. Crochet. It's just pulling loops through other loops in various combinations. Active listening. It's just listening to what people say to you and asking questions. You don't even have to ask hard questions. Sometimes you can just say something like wow, that seems, and it validates how they're feeling and makes them feel like you care. Because trust me, even the most oblivious of people tend to notice when people's eyes glaze over, even if they don't call you on it. Shuffling a deck of cards. Embroidery. Excel. If you can use basic logic and know a couple of powerful formulas, if, index / match, sum, etc., you can perform literal magic in the eyes of your coworkers. Tying a tie. Second grade me, learning to read an analog clock. Using a PC. I've worked in a training capacity before, and I found that most people's problems are not the difficulty, but rather being intimidated and feeling overwhelmed. Especially if you're a bit older and are just now sitting down to learn how to use one. Much like many things, if you take it slow, it's not bad. Once you get the hang of things, it seems silly to have stressed out about it. Replacing parts on modern appliances such as dishwashers and clothes washers. 90% of them are plug and play. If you know what the problem is, you can figure out what part you need from the net, order it online, and replace it yourself with minimal effort. Save yourself hundreds of dollars and feel like a boss. Baking. Can you follow a recipe? Can you measure? Can you time things with a clock? Then you can bake. Not saying it doesn't take a tremendous amount of skill to become a great baker, but to make things like cookies or cakes that aren't from a mix, it's not that complicated, yet everyone is amazed when you do it. Solving a Rubik's Cube. I don't know who gave me my first 3x3 cube, but I remember being in the 6th grade watching YouTube videos on how to solve them. Once I understood how the algorithms worked, it was just a matter of memorizing them. Once you memorize them, it's game over. I remember showing all my friends how I could solve it with my eyes closed. They were shocked, as were my parents. The more impressed they became, the more worried I was that they would find out how easy it was. Lol. Middle school was fun. Solving 90% of its problems. It mostly just equates to googling the issue and using solutions people who have came before have came up with. That last 10% is the tricky part though. Fuck up your entire life. Looks complicated but is easy. Rubik's Cube. Minesweeper. Disassembling firearms. Easy to do, but hard to learn. Flying. Some types of writing. Playing a music instrument. Copying posts that reached top of the month, but slightly changing the question to get gold. Checking a thread to see if someone already posted the same response. Looking at you, Rubik's Cube nerds. Doing your taxes if you don't need to itemize your deductions or use a 1099. Driving stick, easiest thing ever once you're used to it. Organization. So many times I looked at all the shit I had and didn't know where to even start or where to put it. But once I just took everything out, so that I organized by scratch, and changed my mincer, it was surprisingly easy and felt amazing. KonMari method FTW. Walking, it's a two-step process. Reading a manual. It's all in there, really. Every question you've got is answered, if just sit down and read the damn thing. Building computers. It's just adult Legos. Butterfly knife tricks. After a little practice you can do them in your sleep, and they look way harder than they are. Latte art. Making a heart with steamed milk just takes practice. Being a lawyer. It's 99.99% admin and filing stuff. If you've ever watched an office clerk work, you're basically a lawyer. Obviously I'm not talking about advocates who go to court. There's some thinking on your feet that happens there, but even then, less than what shows make you think. Mostly just boring document discovery, etc. The big surprise reveals you often see in legal dramas are literally illegal to do in court. Also approaching the bench when not asked by the judge, etc. Mostly a tedious, mundane job, and most lawyers I know are terrified of becoming obsolete because, well, they already kind of are. Source: am lawyer. Apparently using your turn signals. Handyman work. You obviously need some skill, but with some help of YouTube, some tools and the internet, you can save hundreds in-house stuff that doesn't necessarily require a professional to do it. Sewing is actually quite easy. Quilting. Making a quilt is so freaking easy and looks incredible. If you can sew a straight line, you can make a quilt. It's so satisfying too, and while it is in fact a bit time consuming, if you have the patience to see it through, it's a fantastic gift. The bigger your quilt is, the greater the challenge, but that's just because you have a lot of fabric to handle, not because it goes up in difficulty. Difficulty comes from piecing odd angles together more than anything else. Martial arts. Seems impossible at first. Once you get the basics down, it really comes down to consistency and repetition. If you're willing to put the time in, you can obtain a black belt. Drawing the coolest. Anything involving video game mapping or 3D animation. In about under a dozen YouTube tutorials that simply tell you how to use the user interface of whatever program you're using, you can basically learn how to use it. Problem is, it's very time consuming to do these things if you care at all about detail. In 3D animation, for example, you can spend 16 hours on a project only to have 10 seconds of animation done. Or 10 rooms of a map properly complete. But being time consuming and even seriously boring past hour 8 or so is not exactly the same thing as being hard. I think anyone's capable of doing it if they dedicate enough time to their projects. DJ. Jing is pretty simple. Producing is where it gets hard. Learning how to code in HTML. Once you get it down, you can do it in your sleep. Apparently using the correct way of your chopsticks. Being there for someone. Most people always know that one person who always knows exactly what to say to cheer someone up or help someone through a tough time, and you probably wonder, man, how do they do that so easily? It's really not hard. Just listening and honestly and openly talking to someone can do wonders. You'd be amazed how much you can actually help. Being kind. It's literally the smallest things like opening a door or compliments. I strongly suggest people to try. It makes a huge difference. Sorry for all the typos, English is not my main language. Sharpening a knife with a whetstone. Yeah, it takes a little bit of finesse to do, but if you passed middle school geometry and remember a basic understanding of what a right angle is and how to cut that in half, you'll have sharp knives again in no time. Rhythm games. They are super hard at first, but they get easier once you work at it. One song a day is enough. Edit, formatting, on mobile. Guitar. Easy to learn, hard to master. flying an airliner around the world. So many buttons, so many switches, it's only really tricky when things start to go wrong, and that's when I start to earn my pay. I've kinda realized lately that almost everything is like this. Things that seem complicated are usually just made up of many very simple things put together. Cooking. Like, okay, I'm not talking chopped style cooking. I mean your average at home type. It's really not as hard as a lot of people think. According to Mumbo, all of his contraptions. The game of rugby. It looks really complicated on TV, but the general rules and gameplay is pretty intuitive and straightforward. Some of the rules can be a bit complicated and take a while to learn, but that's what the ref is for, and you learn as you go. When I played for American teams growing up, usually 80-90% of the team was first timers, and then when I coached in college it was the same deal. You can make someone a really decent rugby player in just a few weeks, especially if they're fit and not scared of the contact. Reading and writing Korean. Hand sewing. You cut a long piece of string, tie a knot in one end, thread it through the needle, then sew at the edge of whatever it is needs sewing. It just takes patience. Taking apart, rebuilding and/or modifying a car or truck engine. I've been in 2 training courses, one for Scania and one for car engines. One of the things people first think usually is where to start, but once you get the flow, it's an easy task. Changing a wheel on a car. Bowling properly. The technical side of bowling becomes shrouded in terms like oil patterns, hook patterns, Brooklyns, but when you break it down you just gotta reach the foul line at the same time as your ball. F***king uphold project with 2 lines of code. Play Dark Souls. Cartwheel. Being judged as a human being over a minor inconvenience or a personal mistake. MIG/TIG welding. Cross stitching. As long as you're patient and can count you'll be able to do it. Changing the oil in your car. Not being an entitled asshole. Dancing. A lot of people overthink what they're doing or not just fully express themselves, no matter how awkward or bad they think they're dancing. Fabric weaving. I started a class recently, and while I needed help with the setup of the loom once it was finished and you get to the weaving you get into a rhythm pretty quick. Your mom. Fixing cars. Using Photoshop. There's so much in the program that never gets used, so it's super overwhelming to beginners. Investing money in the market and getting a return. Takes a couple minutes to open a brokerage account, then slowly add more and more money into 2 ETFs, one for the entire stock market and one for the entire bond market. People like to overcomplicate it, but the simpler the better. Gardening. The reason most people kill plants is they don't water them. Distilling alcohol. Oversimplified. You put wine into a pot and the steam travels up a copper pipe into a bucket with water and the water cools the steam down back into a liquid. Of course there are places where you need to separate out what liquor you have so you don't go blind, but that's stupid easy once you know how to do it. Just living. Have you seen how complicated all the things we do is? And we do it automatically. It's amazing how many things we do without even realizing, and how much we've evolved to. We have a layer of mucus in our stomach to protect us from acid. We have evolved to drink milk from cows and goats, and we all do that almost every day, unless you are vegan or can't have dairy. Just recently, I thought about all this, and it blew me away. Soul living, when you think about it broadly, is very complicated, but is actually really easy. Passing an amateur radio license exam. Clean your apartment or room. Teachers at school make putting YouTube into full screen seem like they're trying to design a rocket. Drawing. No one believes me when I say that like most anything, everyone sucks at first, and you just have to put in the time and practice to get better. Sure, some people are more artistically inclined and will be more motivated to learn / will pick up skills quicker, but everything just comes down to practice. There is no natural talent. Solfeggito by CPE Batch. It can be played extremely fast, but you almost always only have one hand playing, and it fits the hand well. IKEA furniture. It's seriously the simplest shit. Why do people have so much fucking trouble getting Google to spit out the answer you're looking for quickly? It's all about the phrasing of the search. Playing an instrument with your eyes closed. Looks hard for non-practitioners, but it's all about muscle memory. Practice a bit and bam voila. Play the drums. Folding a fitted sheet. It seems like witchcraft until you figure it out, and then it is super easy. Cooking. As a kid I once was terrified with burning my food, which was why every time my mom wanted to teach me how to cook, I always said no. Fast forward to being in college, I was forced to learn how to make my own meals. I had friends show me the kitchen basics and watched YouTube for some recipes, and turns out it was actually really enjoyable and pretty easy. In fact, all you had to do was just know the cooking times of what you're cooking to get an estimate of when it's done, and just follow what the experts in YouTube say about what to look out for. Now I got the hang of cooking that I realized I can use all my senses to cook a good meal. Looking at coloration of the food, using a fork to know I got the right texture, smelling and tasting the food if it's what I wanted the dish to be like, and using my hearing to know if it's done frying. Voting. You just have to register, which is basically saying I live at such and such place, and then voting on or before the election day. And it's one of the best things in the world. Thanks for watching the Chronicles of Reddit. Like and subscribe for a marvelous life of adventure.